Good morning, everyone. This is Dawn Allen and Debbie Lockhart with Communities of Need, Voices of Courage and Compassion. In this episode of Communities of Need, we're going to highlight the lives of people who face some of the toughest battles, individuals and families navigating cancer, chronic illness, and life-altering challenges. Their stories are shaped not only by struggle, but by extraordinary resilience. And we want to shine a light on them, on the charitable organizations and service groups and everyday heroes who step forward to meet these needs with compassion, creativity, and unwavering support. Together, we'll explore how communities rally, how hope is built, and how meaningful change begins with a single act of care. Debbie?
If you've watched us before, you know I always do the research and share that with you. I want to give you a definition of a need-based community. It's defined by one thing above all. People come together because they share a specific challenge, vulnerability, or requirement that must be addressed collectively. These communities aren't built around hobbies or identity. They form because members need support, resources, or solutions they cannot easily obtain alone. So what falls into that category, as Dawn said, are like health and wellness-based communities. People who have and their families support chronic illness groups, mental health care groups, addiction recovery, things like that. But there's all different kinds of need-based communities. I'm just going to give you some categories that they fall into rather than list everything smart. You can figure it out. But the categories are survival, like food banks and shelters, health, which I just talked about, the chronic illness groups, emotional, like grief circles and trauma support, structural, disability rights, immigration support, and then the last one is growth, like job training or literacy programs. Within all of these, they have a purpose, but beyond that purpose, they form a community. And if you remember from past podcasts, communities that form, they have a shared interest or shared concern, but they become people who can rely on each other, trust each other, come to the aid of each other. Communities of need often form almost organically. They didn't necessarily set out to become a community, but maybe a child got cancer and the parents are trying to figure out how to deal with this and how to get the best treatment. They hook in with other parents, and that becomes a support group, and they share resources, and they become friends, and they care about each other and their journey. So when we're talking about community of need, it's not just we have a group of parents who get together because we all have sick kids, and we have a potluck, and we get to know each other. It's deeper than that. I'm sure many of you have gotten into communities that are like that. Sometimes it's extended family that forms a really strong community. But communities of need are out there in all of these categories. And if you're in need of something like this, there's lots of resources, of course, available on the internet. But whatever your obstacle is or concern is, you can just start asking around. If it's an illness, talk to your doctor or the hospital or whatever. Do you know of a group of parents, or do you know of a group of children looking after a parent that is going through this that I might get in contact with? So it's, as I said, they kind of form organically through things like that.
I know we've all, my generation in particular, I used to think Danny Thomas was my dad because my dad, they're both Italian, they looked alike, that kind of thing. But that was my first introduction to a community at large, led by someone that everyone knew and therefore trusted, was able to bring together resources from not just across the country, but across the world, in order to care for either chronically or potentially lethal illnesses among young children. And this was something that we seem to always be willing to do for other countries. Our history is rich with organizations like Doctors Without Borders. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is it took us a while to figure out that we kind of owed that to our own. And Danny Thomas took it up, and there've been and of course, I can't think of them. The guys that ride the little tracks at all the parades is a brilliant organization. Shriners, thank you. That I've never obviously understood the organization, but the work they do is phenomenal. Burns are so difficult, and to have the foresight head of global climate change for them to think we're going to need this. This is going to be something our culture is going to need, and have it in place for when this time came. So it's about that community, and we see it with everything from specific cancers, like yes, there's the American Cancer Society, but then there are groups for breast cancer and lung cancer and colon cancer and pancreatic cancer. There are groups in each of those that act as support systems for people in a country that does not care if we live or die, that basically is selling our health for a profit. So communities have had to stand up. My personal thing is those same communities now need to take up the battle against our government. But that's probably another podcast. Debbie?
I think a lot of times when we think of communities of need, we think of the health-related ones. You know, I know that there are groups of parents of kids with autism that support each other through difficult times, but emotional support, that's a big one that I want to touch on, because I lost my son 3 years and he was 43, and it was very unexpected, and it was very difficult. His wife and I were hit really hard. However, my daughter was hit even harder. She and my son were very close, and she had a really, really hard time coming back from that loss. You never come back to your life the way it was, but she was just having trouble even getting back to something that resembled normal. And so she researched and found in her area a grief support group that also included a counselor, and it really, really helped. They were there mostly to support each other, but if someone was having extra difficulty, there was a counselor there at the group to kind of guide them through it. It made a big difference in her life, and after 3 years, she has finally become more herself than she's been in a long time. So those types of communities are very important. After the group had finished their 3 or 4 month session, they stayed in contact. They got together, the whole group got together and went to dinner one night. So they bonded through the fact that they had lost someone important to them and just needed the support and care that they could provide to each other. Of course, with our political situation, there are, I'm not going to call them communities, there are groups who are working hard to make a difference. But it highlights the fact that our states, the country, our towns, our neighborhoods need community. We need to stop looking at our differences and start looking at how we are all people and we all deserve care and support. And I kind of see that as a community of need as well. Our country is in crisis, and as citizens, we need to pull together and care about each other and do the work that needs to be done to correct this.
I have trouble on a daily basis finding the faith to believe that there are enough people left in this country who have the ethics, values, morals, and compassion necessary for us to overturn the rampant lawlessness of the current administration. Both parties have been askew for years, but my generation, Debbie and I's generation, has been busy because we were raising kids and taking care of aging parents in a for-profit system. Now we've added AI to the incredible stupidity, and like the internet, there's no sign, except from the Democrats, of putting any limitations on it at all. Now this is where communities become so vital. Communities have built in many of our states, and they have stopped the centers that these tech giants are trying to put in place. They not only will drive up our energy costs, but we are pretty sure that'll be toxic for our water systems. Do we have it? I know we have it in these wonderful communities of need. We have those people. They are taking care of our people. When God said, "Feed my sheep," it was not a simple statement. It didn't just mean hand your neighbor bread. It meant everything. Feed him mentally. Feed him physically. Feed him emotionally. It wasn't just give him some bread and a cup of wine. Come on, guys. We're not that dumb. So they're doing that. But now, as awful as it is, they need to rise up with the rest of the country that is sane and reasonable and start fighting back against the issues in this administration. And as an example, we currently have, and I don't think they've given it any name other than explosive diarrhea, which is weird, but that is the direct response to DOGE taking away a lot of our scientists from the CDC and putting in an idiot in charge of the CDC. So now everybody across the country is getting this explosive diarrhea. And in the meantime, none of us can eat salad safely, even though it is one of the important food groups. So communities work. I never want to say they don't work, but I do feel like as members of each of those communities, we're going to have to work a little harder, or that small community that we're protecting will be one of the first to suffer in the end. Debbie?
In Facebook posts and Substack and different things that I follow, I see a lot of people talking about the need for community. We have spent this past 6 months exploring the different types of community and how important they are. I think right now, as a follow-up to what Don said, this country needs to start to see itself as one community. Yes, we have different opinions. Yes, we have different religious views, spiritual views, but that doesn't mean that we can't be there for each other. I have people in my family that believe very differently than me politically, but I love those people and they love me, and we make it work. They know what I think. I know what they think. It's I don't know how to say this. More and more people are awakening to the fact that the Trump administration is the most corrupt thing that we could ever envision. And the things that he's doing is for his benefit, and he's taking away things from us. And this was the whole plan when they instituted the Project 2025. And it is going to plan. But more and more people who at one time supported Trump have left that. That doesn't mean they've turned Democrat, but that's not what they wanted. There is no reason why all of these people, with all of us who didn't vote for him, can't come together and start to make changes at the state and local level. That's the best place to start. So if we can build communities that are willing to work toward changes in our towns and in our state, that's going to bleed over into the federal level. It's really hard for me. I'm such an introvert. It's really hard for me to step out of my comfort zone. Plus, I live in a rural area, so it's most of what I do has to be over the internet because, again, I have my closest neighbors 5 miles away. So, and I don't want to harp on this and leave out other important communities of need, but really our country is in need, even if we ignore the stuff going on politically with the Trump administration. We have let ourselves be divided by religion, by race. There's no such thing as race. Biologically, there is no such thing as race, but we'll call it that for now.
Human race.
We can no longer afford to be divided on the important issues that affect all of our lives. So I feel like that is a community of need if we can build it. If we can build it and set our goals, I think that we can make our country what it needs to be. In fact, next month, our podcast is going to take a break from our community podcast, and we're going to give you information about people running for office in different states. We're in Oklahoma. We don't have a great person to vote for as of yet, but there are lots of great people running for office that could use our support. Melissa Chaudhry in Washington, of course, Tallarico in Texas. But since we're women, we want to focus on women candidates running for office in different states to kind of give you an idea of what's out there and who might need additional support. So that's what we're going to do next month. And then we'll get back to our usual stuff in September. Do you have anything to add to that?
So thanks for joining us today. Communities of need cannot thrive alone. I think we've made that point. All of us have to band together as a country, as a human race. This is not a black problem. It is not a white problem. It is not a yellow problem. It is not a purple problem. It is our problem. And while we may have subtle differences in what we believe, we all believe in this country, and we need to learn to act like it. So we are, as she said, stepping away in August from communities to talk about to one of the most important topics possible, voting. On that podcast, we're going to highlight amazing female candidates available in this election cycle, okay, that are across the country. So a wide range of female candidates, and you will be pleased, I think, if you do some surfing. These women are putting up their platforms. We've been missing that. Did you ever see a platform from Donald Trump? Okay. That's what I'm saying. They're putting up their platforms. They're putting up exactly what they believe. That's what we wanted. We don't need, you doing any fancy tap dancing. Just tell me what you believe, and you better believe it. Because if you start changing your mind, then the voters start to lack trust. Okay, so have a good month. As for our communities of need, those of you who have the ability, reach out and help whenever you can. We are needing to rejoin our world. I think for a long time, from the 80s until recently, we kind of isolated ourselves. You can bring religion into that if you want, because that's a part of it. But the bottom line is we need to learn together to work together as one country. And if that means fighting our own government, then we fight our own government. But the most important thing is that we stand together as one body, Americans. Have a good month.